Hi guys, I hope you're doing well. I think maybe you'll recall from last episode when I was talking about the trefoils plus the fabulous pecan beer, I mentioned that this coming week would be the last of the Girl Scout cookie pair up series and that I was saving the granddaddy for last. So if you guessed that it was Girl Scout cookie Samoas, you guessed right. This is a delicious cookie. It's my personal favorite, and we'll read the Girl Scouts tasting notes later, but for now, I will just tell you that if they had just written decadence in a purple box, that's it. So we'll talk about that in a minute, but for now, let's focus on the box of cookies and the fabric pair up and take a look at what we have. Looking at our palette from left to right, in the upper left-hand corner, we have Theory, which is a solid textural, and in this case is almost a spot-on match for the Samoas box. Beneath that is Radius, again with the purple, this time accented in a broken circular geometry by Citron, Seafoam, and Tan. Towards the middle are 3 different colors of Santa Fe to pick up the accents of color in the Radius pattern. And last, on the right, is Nahuri, which has a charcoal ground and a purple broken stripe. So let's talk a little bit about this purple box. I have to tell you guys, when I was trying to put together the color palette for this week, I was angsting out a little bit because sometimes, even though Arcom has a really robust color offering within each pattern, sometimes these really saturated colors are not always prevalent in interior finishes, so it can be a little bit more challenging to find. I think that premised on the Radius, I did a pretty good job with the running line. But there are some areas in which, if you take a look, you can see a little bit of imperfection. So we see, let's focus on the blue on this one. The Seafoam in the Radius is not quite as cornflower as what we see on the Girl Scout uniforms. So let's pretend for a moment that you're trying to build a space that is a color palette that goes with this box. And you need the blue in Radius to be a little bit more of a cornflower color so it matches perfectly. So what I would do, you would send me either the logo color or Pantone color, paint chip, or even a solid color in our line, perhaps that's the perfect match. And you would write me a little note that shows me what you're looking for and says, Tara, I love Radius, but I need for this to be more cornflower so it perfectly matches these Girl Scout uniforms. And what I would do then is send a note up to our options group and ask them to look at the blanket. If you've never seen a blanket before, what that is a combination of all the candidate warp yarns, which are the ones that go down the bolt, and then all of the weft yarns, which are the ones that go across the bolt, and the combinations that they make. So literally, we have a record of every single potential color that the mill can make of any given pattern. So what we would do is go through the blanket and see what colors get us closest so that in a different yarn color, we might have your exact cornflower. In fact, odds are that they do. There's a vast array of colors that are available as part of what's called the standard yarn bank from any given mill. So I would send you samples of that and you'd have the opportunity to take a look, and most of the time, one of those works. And so if that's the pathway, then you can write your spec and place an order. There are minimums that are associated, but they're actually relatively modest, usually in the 1 to 2 piece zone, which translates to about 50 to 120 yards. So for instance, if you had a pattern that you wanted to do a special color on and it was 60 yards, that's 12 lounge chairs, give or take. So it's not an astronomical number that you're committing to. I'll show you a little example of one of these that I did quite a while ago. This is called Pattern Bubbly. It is subsequently phased out, but I think it's a great example of what can be done with looking at the blanket. These colors on the right are not standard colors. They're different variations that were pulled from the blanket in response to a specific request. And this particular pattern happened to have a 60-yard minimum, so it was very attainable. The only real difference after that between that and running line product is that you do have to wait for the production time, which hovers between 6 to 8 weeks. Typically, it's a standard production time. Nothing extra, it's just a matter of waiting for it to be produced. So I think if you want to tweak a color, it's a fantastic opportunity to do that, and it's not terribly hard, and I've done it so many times, I'm happy to walk you through it. So Let's get back to the decadence in the box situation. I mentioned that I would read their tasting notes or description. Girl Scout Cookies says that Samoas are crisp cookies with caramel, coconut, and dark chocolatey stripes. Yum. I felt like a good pair up with something that is as this stout flavor-wise is yet another granddaddy, which is going to be a bourbon. In this particular case, Angel's Envy. They're delicious together. It's ridiculous how good this is. So we talked about the coconut caramel flavors over on the cookies, and actually Flaviar's tasting notes on the Angel's Envy bourbon actually also reference chocolate, caramel, maple, vanilla. So a very almost sweet flavor profile, but there is some spice in this, and it's got a little bit of astringency, so it's a nice little snap on the end of it, a little bit of a burn like a bourbon should have. So delicious. So these two together, plus a fire, plus a crisp autumn night, heaven. It's heaven. What can I tell you? Have a great one. See you next time.